You can't be more Biafra than I am. There is nowhere in the Southeast where a commissioner of police is an Igbo man. There is nowhere except one place in the Southeast where a director of state security service is an Igbo man.
A very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us for Urban Parliament this beautiful Tuesday morning as the 26th day in the month of May. A meeting of Southeast Governors Forum was held on Sunday at the Government House Enugu, and it was a crucial one at that. This morning in Urban Parliament, we interrogate the deliberations made at the meeting. These and many more other developing issues in the southeastern Nigeria will form the body of the special edition of Urban Parliament Special, because we've gone to great lengths to bring someone to whom we are related to by default, and also because of the significance of the place he occupies in the history of Ndigbo. I am Uche Gabriel, and joining me also is Charles Piers.
Good morning to you, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, today we have with us an accomplished lawyer, an economist, and a two-time minister, one as the Minister for Civil Aviation and also as a minister responsible for information and culture. And in 2017, in a landslide victory, won in an election, and currently is the 9th President General of Ohaneze Ndigbo, Chief John Nnia. We're glad to have you. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed, it's fabulous having you on the show today. Before we get into the issue for today, I just wanted to ask you, I'm just wondering really, I mean, if you go around asking who the Ndigbo is, some say they are a resilient people. They are people that are difficult to lead. Some would also describe the Ndigbos as a people who are rugged, who are dogged, who are industrious. But as someone who has led the Ndigbo for this period, how would you describe the Ndigbo?
Our people are very gifted people, extremely hardworking, individualistic. Everyone takes possession of his destiny as an Igbo man. Everyone tries to do his best to improve his immediate environment and has sovereignty of himself and his family. And to that extent, their capacity to be willing on questioning followers is a very remote possibility. If I can fend for my family without government, without a godfather, I don't need you to dictate to me. But it isn't that Igbos are not respectful of authority. Authority can only obtain respect of Ndigbo if you resonate their aspirations and if you are transparent. It is for that reason that Azikiwe took us at the time that he championed independence. I mean, everybody was in love with him. He was an Igbo ambassador. He went to Lagos and won the elections into Lagos City Council and became the leader of the district council. He contested for election into Western House of Assembly and won outside Igbo land. And he had a coalition which won a majority of seats. But for the crossing of the carpets, he would have been the first premier of Western Nigeria. Our people loved him. Dr. Michael Okpara came to be premier of Eastern Nigeria. He came with what he called pragmatic socialism. Okpara saw that our people had an appetite for hard work, and he gave them engines of growth in his agricultural policy, in his industrial policy, in his educational policy, in his transparent management. He denounced self and offered everything he had to the development of our people. That's why we had the first iron and steel industry in Nigeria, the second cement factory in Nigeria, the second brewery in Nigeria, the first breakable plates industry in Nigeria, a cradle and hope door industry, Michelin tires industry, soft drink industry, gas industry. I can go on and on. And we were extremely outstanding in education. Now, for that kind of leader, Igbos were pathological in their support for him. At the time of war, when we were facing a very well-armed adversary, not just only armed by a collective wealth of armaments, but by a lot of support from the industrial countries, Ojukwu emerged as our leader. He devoted every atom of resources that was available to him from his family. He gave us courage. And for the Igbo man, he was an epitome of their basic characteristic. Fearless, prepared to lay down his life for the sake of his people. They loved him. They gave him support. So, to characterize us as individualistic and unamenable to discipline is an aberration of history.
Is that the reason why it's difficult to lead the people of Ndigbo?
It isn't difficult to lead them. In every exam, what you want is to score a pass mark, not to fail. It is when you fail that it's difficult to lead them. But if you look at the historical narration I have given you, we have scored a pass mark in terms of respect for our leaders. As President General of Ohaneze, I am very, very happy. I am going to leave this office in January. And in the main, I have had tremendous cooperation from the Igbo, be they in the diaspora or within. I mean, leadership without an opposition is only possible in the realms of the spiritual, but even then, Christ had devil.
Yeah.
He had Satan opposing him.
But it appears that the best of the story of Ndigbo seems to be in the past, looking at the current Nigerian situation. From what you've just listed, growing up, I had all of those, but it seems to be in the past. You know, bothered.
I think you have a mental disfiguration because of the faulty, illegal structure of government that has been imposed on us.
Okay.
When we had a regional government, there was one Igbo leader for all the states in Igbo land. And our national government was such that all the political parties had a fair access to the central authority. So the Zigs of this world could emerge as leader of Ndigbo nationally,
Okay.
and ended up as president of Nigeria. And the Alex Ekwemes of this world could end up, even with a jaundiced structure, as vice president. The Azikiwes and the Okparas ended up as premier here. Right now, you have Igbos dispersed in about 8 states of Nigeria, you know, where they are autochthonous, that's their homegrown, that's where their home is. But in the 36 states, we're everywhere. We're the only dispersed group in Nigeria. There's no state of Nigeria you go to and discount indigenous population. The next highest population are the Igbos.
Okay.
There's no state of Nigeria you go to and the highest economic investment from non-indigenous is not from Igbos. But don't forget that in every state you go to outside Igbo land, Igbos have a central polity. They have Eze Igbo. They have an Igbo union. Every town has a town union. There is no other community in Nigeria who does it. And if Igbos are not pliable to leadership, they will not have a union in which they give obeisance to their leadership. But you have to be responsive to followership,
Okay.
to be an appreciated Igbo leader. Because there are so many governors now, the attention is diverted. And they run a collegiate system that you cannot say this one is the leader. They regulate and rotate the headship of the governors forum. So to juxtapose this with the past and say that leadership is still not prevalent is, in my fair, not a fair representation of history.
I was actually referring to progress in terms of, you listed a lot of things that can be attributed to the Ndigbo. In the present Nigeria, this jaundiced system is affecting, it seems to be affecting the Igbo race adversely.
Yes. You know that this structure of government was imposed by the military. It is not homegrown. It is not touched on us, as lawyers will say. Our constitution was never approved by the people of Nigeria. We didn't vote for it in a referendum like our forefathers did when they went for independence. And yet it comes with a very false proclamation of we, the people of Nigeria, make this constitution. Where did we make it? We didn't have a parliament when it was made. I was in government then as minister, but I didn't even have the opportunity to see the constitution. It was made by a committee. Well, the proposal was written by a committee headed by Justice Nikitobi, who later ended up in the Supreme Court. And he submitted it to the Armed Forces Ruling Council, which was the legislative arm of the government then. The final copy of the Constitution did not even arrive until Obasanjo had been sworn in. The National Assembly couldn't convene until Fourth Dimension was printing the Constitution, gave us a copy of the Constitution. I saw the Constitution after Obasanjo was sworn in. So there was no public debate, no public perusal of what is the final draft, what are your objections to it. It was just imposed on us by a group of military men who formed the Armed Forces Ruling Council. And the question is, what was their composition? What was their populist representation? They were chosen on the basis of seniority of ranks, and the majority of them came from the Muslim North. So it was like a contrived instrument by a group of army officers who were pursuing a protection of their geographical enslavement of the rest of Nigeria.
So how longer do you think Nigeria can cope with this arrangement?
Well, it depends on you, your generation. I must be frank with you. Your generation is not assertive and is not prepared to claim political power. When I was 15, 16, I walked the streets of Enugu with a badge, Easterners get ready, and I was in secondary school. There was nobody from class 4 to upper 6 in the whole of Eastern Nigeria who didn't wear a badge, Easterners get ready, and walk the streets of Eastern Nigeria. We virtually forced Odumegwu to declare Biafra. Students from the University of Nigeria and Nsukka came to address us on the issues in every secondary school in Nigeria. And by the time the war broke out, 2 years into the war, I joined the army at a very impressionable age of 17 plus. And I'm not sure how many people who are 17 years old today who are prepared to give up their life in pursuit of the freedom of their people. I don't know how many people are prepared to do that. Now, when I was in university, at the end of the war, I ran for election as president of Students' Union in the University of Ibadan, a Yoruba-dominated university. Many Igbos told me not to waste my time, that I would not win. But I ran. And I ran against a Yoruba man.
You seem to have lived in a better world.
Well, I don't know, but a world is what the participants of that world make it to be. If you're docile, indifferent, afraid to assert your values, the world will swallow you with its prevalent values.
Someone came on the scene and seemed to be asserting, his convictions, and it's like it went not.
Well, it depends on your capacity to catch the mood of the moment. If you say what everybody wants to say and you're prepared to champion it, you'll have many others as your co-conspirators.
Okay.
And the burden wouldn't be yours alone. What I'm saying to our children is stand up. Stand up for your rights. Don't give them up. Nobody would fight it for you. I'm 68. If I live as long as my mother, I would have just 1 year to go. If I live as long as my father, I have less than 3.5 years to go. You know, I have come to the end of the fighting era. But I hate to see the young ones not able to live out the same kind of history we lived, or better. Look at the history of the whole world, where the trajectory changed, whether it was in Nkrumah's Ghana, whether it was in Patrice Lumumba's Congo, whether it was in Nelson Mandela's South Africa. It has always been the voice of the young man. Mandela started as a young lawyer. The young must not abandon their rendezvous with history. But the problem, though, is that in doing so, you have to strategize the best way to do so that you do not become a sore finger, and those that you are standing against what they are doing do not swallow you up and quarantine you and make you've got to develop a movement. And when a movement is so democratized and popular, no leadership can ignore it.
Is that not what Nnamdi Kanu is trying to do?
I wouldn't like to go into that issue. I have discussed it before, and you know my views. You can be doing a right thing with the wrong style, and the wrong style compromises the objective.
Interesting. I mean, you have been around for a while, really. I mean, if you look at the last time I saw a video of you, with a commemoration of the 50th year anniversary of Biafra, the Biafran War, and then it was quite interesting. You said that it doesn't look like, it doesn't seem like the war is over, that the Igbos are still marginalized under this administration. The 3 R's have not been acted upon by successive government, and one wonders. You said there's a deliberate conspiracy. Those are your words. Deliberate conspiracy. I was wondering, who were you referring to when you said there is a deliberate conspiracy?
Look, this is all in the public domain.
Right.
The deposed Emir Kanu, Sanusi, went public and said the conspiracy between the North and Yorubas to keep the Igbos down should be revisited. In his view, he said that the Igbos who were recipients of this bad conspiracy were those who did not participate in the war, and that these young people were being punished unjustly. Now, if you go to public opinions on several important people in Nigeria, including Northerners, just yesterday I was listening to the wife of a Northern senator bemoaning the marginalization of Igbos. You know, why should a Northern woman decide to go to social media, see herself on photograph and broadcast her marginalization? It is obvious that we are marginalized. First of all, there's no accurate census of our people, and we must have a contributory negligence to this, because it was at the time that Masop said Igbos should not be part of the census, and so we were undercounted. The reason I say this is that in the course of this work as President General of Ohaneze, I've had an opportunity to assess Igbo population. When the Northern youth gave us a quit notice to quit Northern Nigeria, I was meeting with the leaders of Igbos in all the 19 northern states. And they used to come on a night bus and have breakfast in my house, go to their hotels and clean up and come back to a meeting. We finish at about 5 o'clock and they go back and take a night bus back to Kanu. We started a census of all the town unions in the 19 states and Abuja. And we decided that every town union should do a census of the families, Igbo families in the north. The father, the mother, the children, the house helps, the apprentices in their shops and what have you. And we enumerated 11.6 million Igbos in northern Nigeria. Just living in northern Nigeria. I am aware that in the last election, the number of Igbo registered voters in Lagos State alone exceeded 3 million. Now, if you extrapolate the children and the unregistered adults there, it will give you an idea of the amount of Igbo population in Lagos. Indeed, one of our leaders in Lagos told me that on the basis of his projection of population growth, what happened in the city of London, where an Arab immigrant whose father was a bus driver is now the mayor of London, could happen easily in Lagos. If voting is adult suffrage, in the next 10 years, the largest single ethnic group in Lagos will be Igbos. So, we have not been reflected demographically. There is nowhere in the questionnaire for Nigerian population census, the enumeration of our people, where there is a column for religion or ethnic group. Why is it intentionally not there? Nobody wants to know whether there are more Christians than Muslims in this country, and nobody wants to know your ethnic origin and which ethnic origin is great. Why is it that the president of Nigeria should go to Egypt and say that every African who wants to come to Nigeria is free to come without a visa, and that he will be documented when he comes here? Why is it that the governor of Bauchi State, who is PDP, would support the president's policy and declare publicly that every Fulani man anywhere in the world is a Nigerian? The Fulanis came from Futajelon in Guinea. They are not touchstones. They are not indigenous to Nigeria. So, what is the essence of that proclamation? It is a grand design to colonize a country. After British colonial rule, we come back to Fulani colonial rule. That is despicable, intolerable. You see, you started by telling me about my views about 50 years of Biafra and so on. You see, let me tell you, we have been pushed to what Hooks in physics will describe as elastic limits. But you know that for every challenge you face, you must have a strategy and tactics for dealing with it. If your wife shouts at you and even goes to the extent of giving you a slap, and you refuse to slap back at her, and you fight her with intellect, even if you just refuse talking to her for 1 week, she will come down on her knees. You have conquered her intellectually. You have subdued her perpetually. But if you went back and hit her, bam, 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 her parents will come and say, look, you don't have to kill her because she made a mistake. We gave you this to keep forever and to be your own. So we expect you to treat her the way you treat your own child. If we beat her up the way you did beat her for her misdemeanor when she was in our house, she wouldn't look as attractive as she did when you married her. This is my division with a lot of the young people now who do not know what we went through when we fought for Biafra. It's very easy to call people to arms and to move our children in the streets and tell them to move around with flags and demonstrate and so on. It shows our populist zest for self-determination, but it is not an end in itself. Even though apartheid South Africa got to a stage where it had to resort to guerrilla warfare in order to gain independence, but a lot of what gave it independence was diplomatic. the frontline states and their support for them, the international arena in the United Nations and the African Union, the world opinion in favor of self-determination. That was what get them. Look, even in the United States of America, Martin Luther King fought for the freedom of the black man. He didn't go to war. He used the power of persuasion. No race survives warfare twice in its history.
Right. Now, the reason why I asked that marginalization question was because, there's so many arguments there that the resources that the Southeast have received since 1999 haven't been duly used by the people who lead us, who are also Igbos. And we will have news and stories about certain state governments who would not even employ other Igbos from other states. They would rather actually employ their own people. Isn't that a little sense of marginalization amongst the Igbos too?
Yeah, it exists in a minority rather than in a majority. This was the government of T.A. Oji in Abia State, who retired non-Abia State indigenes in his employ. That is a historical fact, but it was condemned by all Igbos, and it was reversed by subsequent administrations in Abia. The problem is that we tend to exaggerate minority incidents into majority incidents. The Southeast Governors Forum appears to be the strongest regional forum of governors in Nigeria, as I see it today.
Really?
Yes, in my view, because I have attended their meetings on their invitation, and their do things together spirit is very strong. Their sense of loyalty to Igbo land is quite high. Their methods may not be completely satisfactory to everyone. I think they're sometimes very diplomatic and very careful, but their motivation is totally Igbo.
People will want to see more from the Southeast governors. There are people who believe that there's need for more regional integration. We have states doing what they are doing. We have not seen any project that is regionally powered by the Southeastern governors.
The Southeastern Governors Forum have just approved for Ohaneze to start a Southeast Stabilization Fund. The Southeast Stabilization Fund is going to grow economic activities, educational activities, research, new areas of production, agriculture, computer education, and what have you, enablement of small-scale industries and the large. And it is a product of the support of the Southeast Governors Forum. This is a product of it, and it was in the communique the issue.
With most of the governors doing the last lap of their tenure, do you see that gaining traction?
Government is a continuum. Even though this is an Ohaneze project, I'm going to leave in January 10 of next year. And somebody from Imo State is going to succeed me. But government is a continuum. And we will all not be dead. We will all be here reminding whoever is incumbent that we started this. Jim Nwodo was in our meeting. Jim started Anambra State University of Science and Technology. All the campuses he started have grown into universities. The Abakaliki campus is Ebonyi State University. The Oka campus is Nnamdi University. The Nnewi campus is College of Medicine. The Enugu campus is in Albany, a full-fledged university. It's only the Nsukka campus that hasn't started, and I do hope that Governor Egwuanyi will take note of this and the dissatisfaction of Nsukka people that this has not taken off in our lifetime.
The meeting on Sunday was not the first time the governors were meeting. The last time they met, there was hints there was going to be a railway to cut across the southeast, and some of the things they plan to do. We've not seen anything happen in that direction.
Well, a number of things have happened since the last time they met. the mainstay of the economy, namely oil, has plummeted.
Okay.
I have in all my public lectures in the last 2 years predicted that we'll get, I'm sure that I talked about it in my last visit here, we'll get to that stage. Not just because of COVID, but the world has moved away from oil as a major source of power. You know that in the last 3 years, in Europe, China, and America, there have been more production and more demand for electric cars than cars based on fossil oil, that is crude oil. So in the next 10 years, nobody will bother himself about a car driven by petrol. And that means the demand for our crude oil will go low. There's nothing pari passu with this. The statistics of newly installed machines all over the world have shown a higher proportion of machines dependent on solar, electric, renewable energy than on machines dependent on fossil oil. That means a gradual movement, not just from motor cars, but from all machines to non-oil sources of power. They have discovered a rock, a perovskite or something you call it, which has the capacity of attracting sunlight and retaining power as solar energy for a longer duration than the present science. This is bound to completely radicalize the world. Now, we listen to Benjamin Netanyahu tell us in his advertisement of the State of Israel how you can, by drone technology, determine the chemical composition of a plant in a farm and cure the deficiency by drone technology without entering the farm. America has shown us how you can use drone technology and go into warfare without putting a boot in the field. They followed an Iranian general from his country to a foreign country. They followed his convoy, identified him inside a car without entering the car. Just by drone technology and photo technology, they could see his face. They could hear him talking inside the car. They targeted him and killed him accurately. And as members of his convoy exited their cars running away from this onslaught, they identified them one by one and killed all of them. The world has moved on. And our children are still busy, unable to catch with the current of technological evolution going on. We should be in a state of war for knowledge now.
In one of the meetings, you stormed out. Some said it was in disagreement with what happened, the template that the IG of police actually came with. Some others say it was because you were kept late. Can you speak to us about that?
Well, first of all, the IG invited us to a meeting. It was in a public place opposite the judiciary. Forgotten what they call that public entertainment place.
The place.
Sorry?
Well, I think it's the place.
I can't remember the name. A very popular place, you know. People hold a lot of weddings and receptions, just opposite the High Court. We were all told to come there for an 11 o'clock engagement or something, or 10 o'clock. We were kept for like 4 hours.
Wow.
We didn't see the governors. We didn't see the Inspector General of Police. The crop of Igbo leadership were there. Traditional rulers, presidents of town unions, important personalities, vice chancellors of universities, judges, women leaders. We all were kept there. When it got to 4 o'clock, I decided to leave. I felt that my staying there, small as I am, the office I hold represents the Igbo personality. And subjecting me to such disgrace was subjecting the Igbos to disgrace. So I left. When I left, the protocol people got in touch with the governors. And they quickly came to the venue and they began to call me to come. They profusely apologized for keeping us. They said they felt that it was important to sit with the Inspector General of Police and see what is his model of community police, so that they as governors can look at it. Because if he went to that reception place and announced something they didn't like and they opposed him publicly, it will mean a public disgrace for him as well as the federal government. But they felt that it was better to handle it by discussing with him. So when we came, the chairman of the Governors Forum announced to us his agreements, or their agreements with the Inspector General of Police. And we had all spoken to it. We all later spoke to it. He told us that the community police that will be implemented in Southeast will be homegrown. The recruitment of its members will be done by town unions and traditional rulers of each community. The command and control will remain with the respective commanders in their various local governments. They will, of course, liaise with police and army and other security agencies, but they will be independent. And we spoke to it and told the Inspector General of Police, if that is your model, we will support it. Because, look, right now, your policing here has failed. I told him that I personally traveled to Onitsha from Enugu, and I recorded 17 checkpoints. And I photographed them and I videoed them, and I found that they were toll gates rather than security checkpoints. And in fact, the police and the army have been so badly disparaged and disgraced that commercial vehicles throw 50 naira on the floor and the policeman runs and picks it. I told him that the soldiers in Oji River, they are playing draft while they deploy 16-year-old, 15-year-old looking boys. They pretend to carry sachet water. And they say, take it to a commercial vehicle driver, a trailer. And the man throws in money there and they give him sachet water. And he goes back and gives the soldiers the money. We photographed all this and videoed all this, On one occasion, I stopped in Oji River. And the boy began to run. And my police orderlies caught him. And I turned to the soldiers and said, look at it. Will you allow your child to be doing this on the street? What are you teaching these children? I then reported this matter in front of the GOC at a meeting of Southeast governors. And the GOC at that time went personally to Jiriva in Mufti and saw that I was saying the truth. I also named another place in my local government area. This place is called Ozala, where they have an army checkpoint. They not only rape and disuse our women, they turn our children into collectors of these road bribes. The GOC dismantled both of them, but they have been reconstituted.
All right. The radio waves, official tabloids and social media in the last 3 weeks or 1 month has been awash with different news, trailers carrying almajiris and different. You should know about it. What's going on? Because our people don't feel safe anymore. Do we have reason to be scared, or there's no cause for alarm?
First of all, I must preface my comment by saying, don't believe everything you read in the social media. A number of them are either simulated, outdated, or false. But with regard to the movement of people here, yes, there have been an unprecedented movement of northerners into the southeast. And these northerners are able-bodied young men, mostly. they don't belong to the group of people called Amajuris, because Amajuris are children who are supposed to be attending Quranic schools. These are not the kind of people I see. Now, I have written to the president. I have made a public release on this matter, because first, the northern governors have said there should be no movement of Amajuris between their states, and that they should all go back to their states of origin, reunite with their parents, or be rehabilitated by their governments in Quranic schools. The governor of Kaduna State even had to climb a trailer to ensure that there were no Amajuris inside the trailers. The federal government, represented by the President of Nigeria, has made a proclamation under its COVID directives that there should be no interstate movement except for certain classified special assignments like movement of drugs, movement of essentials like petrol and what have you. Now, there has been a breach of this. I don't understand how somebody can come all the way from Kanu in a trailer and have people hiding behind consignments of bags of rice or cattle, and nobody detects them until they get to the border in Obolafo. That is preposterous. It means there is a conspiracy along the way. Mm-hmm. Now, we have also noticed among the Nigerian police that they are extremely compromised. Notwithstanding this border, once they receive gratification from these transporters, they allow them to pass, irrespective of what they carry. Why should the Abia State governor discover people inside a trailer after they have passed Abuja, passed Kogi, passed Benue, passed Enugu? Some policemen at this point compromise themselves. I'm not surprised that when COVID gives us the category of people who have been infected since this pandemic, apart from health workers, which top the list, the next is policemen. Because the kind of money that they touch, which is already infested by the coronavirus, and they do not understand that this is bound to affect their families when they take this money home. This is unfortunate, and this is why I must address this matter, because quite often, sometimes it's not good to say everything openly, but it's for the purpose of our people. It's important for them to have some bit of rest of mind by looking back. They say our governors haven't started Amotekun and so on. Amotekun, the only difference between Amotekun and our security arrangement in the south is that Amotekun has got a legislative empowerment, which our governors have directed our state assemblies to do now with regard to our local security arrangement. But before Amotekun started, our governors launched forest guards.
All right, you'll continue in a short while. We'll go for the news, and when we come back, Urban Parliament will continue.